Larissa Taylor comes from a long line of PC girls, as her great auntie graduated from school in 1927. Following in the family traditions and footsteps her aunties and mum before her, Larissa boarded at PC in the 1980s and graduated in 1985. She was deputy head girl in her final year, and as well as Dux of Humanities. Her daughter Isabel is here at PC today. Larissa's career post-Perth College started in the corporate sector of agricultural banking, and she has subsequently worked in the corporate roles in Canberra, Sydney, Houston, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and now back here in Perth. Simone Pirie is also a boarder of the class of 1985 and was Bedford House captain in her final year. Simone's mother attended Perth College and graduated in 1957. Simone's daughter Grace graduated last year. Like Larissa, Simone has a very successful career in the corporate sector and is Director of Finance at Steelcat Recruitment. We welcome Larissa and Simone to chat about their boarding experience at PC in the 1980s and the skills those experiences have equipped them with.
What a privilege it has been that we've been asked to actually come here and celebrate 100 years on the Perth College Mount Lawley campus. It only seems like yesterday that we were out there in your shoes.
36 years ago, I first met my incredible friend, Simone, also known as Greenie.
And she's known as Lart, which rhymes with tart
and other things. Anyway, Simone is also my third cousin, and I'd never met her before, until the day we stood out on the veranda of St Michael's Hall in May 1980, waiting to sit the annual scholarship test. Simone subsequently won the Old Girls Scholarship for our year, and I was fortunate to receive a bursary. We both ended up in the best house, Bedford. And despite that embroidered yellow bridesmaid's dress you made me wear for your wedding, we have been friends ever since.
Mrs. Adele invited us to reflect on what Perth College was like back in the 80s. So, of course, we thought of Come On Eileen, and music. No? Okay. Thanks to PC, we have both many talents which make us remarkable women, some of which we're not going to share with you today, and include things like turning our eyelids inside out and squealing like a bush pig.
When we arrived in Year 8 in 1981 from Mandurah and Tamworth, Perth College was a frugally run institution, harking back to an era of conservative education for young ladies. It wasn't so much the progressive inquiring institution concerned with nurturing remarkable, courageous young women that it is now. Our first impressions of the school weren't necessarily that welcoming either. The gardens out the front on Lawley Crescent were slightly dishevelled, and the big quad was a grey, cold concrete box.
Entering the boarding house, like Colleen said, you walked up a great big old dark staircase up into the Year 8 dormitory. And the Year 8 dormitory did have 10 beds, and they were side by side with about that much room in between. You could just walk to your bed. Around the outside of the room we had a cupboard and a chest of drawers, and that was it. So there was no place to go and get changed. There was no modesty. You did everything together. You slept together. You snored together. But it was great. It was very grounding. The blankets within the rooms were freezing in winter, and the beds were saggy, and the food was, well, crap. Just to make you feel really excited about going to the new school, for the first 6 weeks we weren't allowed to speak to our parents at all, no phone calls, because this was supposed to help you settle in.
Needless to say, most of us cried ourselves to sleep every night. In the 80s, no one had personal devices. There were 2 phones in the whole boarding house, and you could only access them after prep for an hour. Your boyfriends had to be really keen to get through. And there was no privacy, everyone could hear your conversations.
For pocket money, each girl got $25 a term. So you had to ask the mistress if you could use the money and what you were going to use it for. So for an extra special treat, if you happen to have a little bit more money, you would go down to Mount Lawley and get hot chips at Red Rooster. It was a huge treat. There was no grilled girls, no tutti frutti, no gelato.
Just Red Rooster. Weekend activities included lots of sport, lots of sucking on tubes of condensed milk bought at the deli, which is now the development office, and lots of lying around the pool in summer, basting in baby oil to get that melanoma glow.
Which is why we get skin checked every year now. Don't do that. Sundays were luxury, you could sleep in, but chapel was at 8 a.m. and compulsory quarters, of course. You weren't allowed to eat breakfast beforehand, so there was a wonderful cacophony of grumbling stomachs the whole way through the session, which made sacristan taste really good. It was fantastic. And every now and again, just for a special treat, someone would faint.
Don't get us wrong, there was a lot of kindness and a lot of fun. Just occasionally for a special treat, I think Colleen mentioned Nana Mary. She was our favourite, kind-hearted house mistress. She used to take her big ring of keys and tiptoe down the stairs after lights out with us, take us to the kitchen, which is still in the same place, and let us into the cold room so we could have a midnight feast of ice cream.
If you wanted to access music, you had to make it yourself. A couple of us had Walkmans, and a few had radios. But most of us loved singing and were involved in one choir or another. We used to sing our hearts out on every trip back from sport to Hotel California by the Eagles. Singing the Borders Choir was a special privilege. It wasn't quite as good as these wonderful girls who got to sing at Westminster Abbey, but we loved singing the Borders Choir because we could sit up in the choir loft, which meant Mr. Ellis, who was a very strict headmaster, couldn't see what we were doing.
His nickname was Elfie, so hiding from Elfie was a special sport. So this was where we started out. It was an environment of educational privilege, and many of the staff were passionate educators. Thanks to them, our start at PC gave us both a love of learning, a zest for life, and an appreciation of how important it is to nurture and give back to community. And this was reinforced by what we learnt from our mums, our aunts, our great aunts. This special culture at PC is what we wanted for our daughters, Grace and Izzy.
Our class of 85 recently had a 30-year reunion, and there's a few of them out there. Among us were lawyers, television producers, entrepreneurs, full-time mums, pharmacists, Defence Force officers. She was one of the really naughty ones. Academics, tertiary administrators, all of us utterly remarkable in our own way because of the choices that we've made.
Perth College gave me the courage to make bold choices, and life is not predictable. My family had a tough time in the mid-80s when my parents divorced and sold our farm, but not before I'd had the chance to work hard over a couple of summers on the farm and save up a fortune, $1,600, and I used it to fund my Indonesia trip in Year 10. The Indonesia trip and the language education for me at Perth College changed my life. I went on to study Asian Studies at ANU and work in roles where I could contribute to Australia's place in Asia. And when I met my French-Canadian husband, I actually had enough confidence to try and speak to him in French, and he didn't hold it against me. So I owe a lot to Perth College. Thank you so much.
After Perth College, I was lucky to receive a Rotary scholarship to Japan, so I spent a year over there and then came back and studied Japanese and economics at UWA. And I think Perth College gave me the confidence to go after what I wanted to, but then later in my life it also gave me the confidence and the ability to adjust to the things that life throws up for you. So after I went to university, my life went off-road for a little bit, and by off-road I mean Menkatharra. I met my husband, who was working in mining, and instead of this career pathway as a corporate woman, I ended up in mining as a site clerk, and we loved it and built a life together. And when we decided to have children, we made the decision for our family that I would be a full-time mother and stay home until the children were in high school. So that's what I did, and it was a great choice for us as a family, and a career choice that I would recommend for anybody. It's very rewarding. Once the children were on their way, as they are now, my husband and I decided to go into business, and we set up a mining recruitment company, and that was a fantastic opportunity to switch the brain back on in a lot of ways, and it was a very steep learning curve, and well worthwhile. I'd also recommend going into your own business to all you girls as well. I think it's an extremely rewarding thing to do. We've now just started another business. We've got a tech startup as well, but one of the things really close to me is helping the community and giving back. And one thing I loved about Perth College was netball here, and I know there's a lot of netball players that I've come into contact with. I still continue to coach today because I loved it so much as a student, and so I think it's really important to give back, and I love seeing the girls out there and enjoying themselves as well. I'm still involved as an administrator in netball. I'm the president of the Perth Lions netball region this year, which is bringing me into contact with a whole lot of new athletes and something I love. So Perth College has really not only given me abilities to do things in my personal and professional life, but also as a person who really enjoys giving back to the community. So thank you, Perth College, for that, and I hope you girls will be able to follow on and do that kind of thing in your life as well, whatever makes you happy.
So when we got together on the weekend to reflect on if we could leave one message to you all about what Perth College means to us, it was about giving back, and it was about the values that you leave Perth College with. They are your compass for life. They're your heritage. So hold them dear and go for it.